I didn't flinch when the HOA president banged her fist on the folding table and accused me of blatant non-compliance for keeping chickens on my land. I just slid the original deed across the surface, the one with the county seal, dated 40 years before their HOA ever existed. Their lawyer looked down, read it once, and then twice, and I could see the blood drain from his face. He whispered something to her, and for the first time since this ridiculous crusade began, the entire board fell silent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The paper did all the talking. The funny thing is, none of this was ever supposed to be a fight. I wasn't the type of guy who moved out to the edge of the county looking for drama. I'd had my share of noise and crowds in the city, and when I finally bought this little patch of land, all I wanted was peace. It was the kind of property that made you exhale when you drove up the gravel driveway. 2 acres, nothing fancy, just a small farmhouse that had been standing long before I came along, and a few outbuildings that leaned a little but still had bones strong enough to last another 50 years. I planted a garden, fixed up the porch, and in the spring I put together a chicken coop. Not for business, not to make money, just a half-dozen hens for fresh eggs and the simple kind of satisfaction that comes with it. Mornings were my favorite. I'd sit on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching the hens peck around while the sun came up over the pines. No noise but the rustle of trees and the low clucking of birds. It was exactly the life I had pictured, quiet, grounded, steady. I didn't move there to challenge anyone or to be part of any organization. I wasn't even aware of the HOA, not really. They were just another group of people who had clustered together after the subdivision went up down the road. My deed showed my property was carved out long before that, but I figured it didn't matter either way. My land was mine. Or so I thought. The first notice came taped to my front door. It was printed on the kind of cheap paper you'd expect from a homeowners association, full of official-sounding language and highlighted words in all caps. Violation, unauthorized livestock structure. I remember standing there on the porch, reading it 3 times in disbelief. They were claiming my chicken coop was against community rules and needed to be removed within 14 days, or I'd face fines and potential eviction proceedings. I laughed at first. Chickens? Eviction? It sounded absurd. My property was on the other side of the road, outside their neatly plotted subdivision. My land wasn't subject to their rules. It was obvious. But then the letters kept coming. They escalated quickly. Warnings turned into fines, and fines turned into threats of liens. They claimed the bylaws of their association extended to my parcel, and that, as a community member, I was bound to comply. I wrote back politely at first, explaining that according to the deed, my land predated their HOA, and that the county had no zoning restrictions against backyard poultry. I included a copy of the zoning code. I thought reason would settle it. Instead, they doubled down. Soon after, I started receiving emails with phrases like failure to comply and grounds for legal action. They weren't satisfied with words. They wanted me to dismantle the coop and get rid of the hens. I called for a meeting, thinking face-to-face might smooth things over, but the board treated me like an intruder. One member even smirked and said, "You'll find it's easier to just follow the rules like everyone else." That was the moment something shifted inside me. I stopped trying to reason with them and started looking for leverage. Nights got longer after that. I'd sit at my kitchen table, piles of documents spread out, going through everything I could find. I pulled the original deed from the county clerk's office, traced the chain of title back to the 1960s, and confirmed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that my land was never incorporated into their subdivision. I requested survey maps, plat records, and HOA filings with the state. Piece by piece, I built a fortress of paper. Every smug email they sent me went into a binder. Every notice, every fine, every threat, I kept them all. My neighbors, once friendly enough, started avoiding eye contact, probably afraid the HOA would target them next if they spoke up. It was isolating, but it only steeled my resolve. The chickens, meanwhile, kept laying eggs as if nothing was wrong. My kids loved collecting them in the mornings, and I wasn't about to tell them the board of self-appointed neighborhood police wanted to take that away. I told my wife not to worry, that I had it under control. She nodded, but I could see the concern in her eyes every time another envelope arrived. And that's what made me sharper, colder. I wasn't going to let a handful of bureaucrats threaten my family's peace. When the board finally sent me a certified letter threatening to initiate eviction proceedings, I knew it was time. I requested to attend their next public meeting. They assumed I was coming to beg for leniency, maybe to promise I'd comply. I showed up with my binder. I didn't bring a lawyer. I didn't need one, which brings me back to that folding table. The president launched into her tirade, waving copies of fines and violation notices, her voice rising with every word. I waited for her to finish. Then I placed the deed on the table, flipped to the page with the county seal, and slid it forward. "This," I said quietly, "is my land. It was deeded outside your subdivision before your HOA was ever formed. You have no jurisdiction here." Their lawyer leaned over, read it, and instantly understood. He whispered something to the president, and I swear I saw her face collapse. The room went silent. I didn't gloat. I didn't lecture. I simply gathered my papers, told them I expected all fines and liens to be rescinded immediately, and walked out. It was the cleanest victory I've ever had. No shouting, no drama, just the undeniable weight of the law. The aftermath was almost anticlimactic. Within a week, the letters stopped. The fines were wiped clean, the threats dissolved. Word spread through the neighborhood, and suddenly the same people who had looked away before were giving me nods of quiet respect. The board's confidence cracked, and within a few months, 2 members resigned. The president, the one who had screamed the loudest, eventually stepped down after a lawsuit from another homeowner exposed mismanagement of funds. Their power wasn't absolute anymore. The fear they thrived on had evaporated. As for me, my life went back to what it was meant to be. Quiet mornings with coffee and chickens, afternoons tending the garden, no envelopes taped to my door. The HOA still exists, technically, but they don't bother me anymore. They can't. Every time I drive past the subdivision, I notice how the same people who once threatened to evict me now look the other way. Or sometimes, if they're feeling brave, raise a stiff hand in greeting. Either way, it's quiet, and that's all I ever wanted.